Fred Rogers was a gentle genius who knew how to make children feel good about themselves. Even after his death in February 2003, he continues to fascinate and inspire folks of all ages. Here are a few interesting facts we've learned about Mr. Rogers since he died. For many people, the introduction to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a precious childhood memory in and of itself. If you've ever watched the show growing up, the thought of Fred Rogers walking through that front door is enough to fill your heart with joy. Every young fan knew what came next. He'd hang up the jacket, put on a sweater, and switch out the loafers for sneakers, all while singing about how much he appreciated his viewers. As you may
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, fellow Gen Z Brit. Today is going to be checking out what's come out about Mr. Rogers since he died. Now, of course, rest in peace to Mr. Rogers first and foremost. It's crazy to think about how someone who left such a big impact, a legacy, who was a national treasure, was someone that I only just discovered literally, or had no clue who he was up until recently, like a week ago. This rabbit hole that I'm currently going down, which I'm going to further in this video, has probably been one of the most insightful, jaw-dropping, eye-opening, thought-provoking, speechless, that's probably not the right way to use that word, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's just been one of the most interesting rabbit holes that I've ever dived deeply into. I recently checked out the Won't You Be My Neighbor documentary on the Patreon. I reacted to the full film in its entirety. I know a lot of you guys have been wanting me to react to that one, but also on the Patreon also get access to all of my movie reactions or album reviews, as well as my sitcom reviews, as well to some classic 70s and 80s shows. If you guys want to get that exclusive bonus content that I cannot post on YouTube, as well as get a Gen Z perspective on a lot of the nostalgic things that a lot of you guys would have grown up on, then definitely consider checking out the Patreon, link in the description below. And of course guys, like I always say, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well as turn on this post notification, because that also goes a long way, as well as like the video. So it lets me know you guys want to see more, and let me know in the comments below what other things you guys want me to check out. But with that being said guys, let's get straight into this video. Let's go.
Fred Rogers was a gentle genius who knew how to make children feel good about themselves. Even after his death in February 2003, he continues to fascinate and inspire folks of all ages. Here are a few interesting facts we've learned about Mr. Rogers since he died. For many people, the introduction to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a precious childhood memory in and of itself. If you've ever watched the show growing up, the thought of Fred Rogers walking through that front door is enough to fill your heart with joy. Every young fan knew what came next. He'd hang up the jacket, put on a sweater, and switch out the loafers for sneakers, all while singing about how much he appreciated his viewers. As you may already know, Rogers' mother personally knitted his sweaters as a way of saying, "I love you."
My mother, as long as I could remember, made at least one sweater every month.
After she died, the show's staff purchased similar-looking sweaters and dyed them to keep the tradition going. The clothes didn't just have sentimental value, though. According to a 2014 post on fredrogers.org, this predictability offered a sense of security. Through your rituals and routines, you're offering that to children too. And since Rogers was remarkably thoughtful, he based his routine on what viewers might expect at home. Since the show originally aired late in the afternoon, right around the time parents typically returned home from work, Rogers switched from jackets to sweaters to signify that work time was over. Similarly, putting on sneakers was meant to create a more casual atmosphere.
That's so interesting, with that intentional use of clothing, as well as the time that the show would have came on. He was saying, you know, it would have came on late in the afternoon, just around about the times when the parents would have been coming back. It just shows you just how intentional everything that Mr. Rogers did was, and how much he tried to fine-tune and curate this show in a way, and what he put out in a way that literally spoke to the core of that one child, like he said in previous interviews. That
we get so wrapped up in numbers in our society, and the most important thing is that we're able to be one-to-one, you and I, with each other at the moment. If we can be present to the moment with the person that we happen to be with at the moment, that's what's important.
He doesn't think about everyone in a general sense. He always tries to think about that one child and connects with each and every single person watching on an individual, intimate, one-to-one kind of basis. And see, I didn't even realize he did that, but again, man, it just adds to what he was about, that authenticity, man.
Over. Similarly, putting on sneakers was meant to create a more casual atmosphere. When you're hospitalized for any reason, having a friend in your corner could mean the world. For Beth Usher, that friend was Fred Rogers. In 2018, Usher shared her ordeal with Today as part of a tribute to Rogers. As a child, Usher suffered from a rare and debilitating disease called Rasmussen encephalitis, which was destroying her brain cells and causing up to 100 seizures per day. As a result, she frequently fell and hit her head on the floor. At the age of 5, she had to have half of her brain removed. Watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood brought Usher solace. So her mother contacted his assistant in the hopes of getting an autographed picture. Instead, Rogers called and spoke to young Usher for an hour. They discussed her fears and her favorite puppets on the show. After her operation, Usher fell into a weeks-long coma. Rogers, an ordained minister, prayed with Usher's mother over the phone and eventually flew from Pittsburgh to Baltimore to see Beth. He greeted the unconscious child with her favorite puppets. As she writes in her essay, "For the following hour, I was the star in his neighborhood." As Beth told the New York Post in 2018,
"I felt like I was touched by an angel when I met Mr. Rogers."
Their friendship.
I didn't even know about that. It's like the more I'm going down this rabbit hole, the more I'm just continuing to be shocked and amazed. But then I'm not really shocked at the same time, because he's shown me enough. Like, I've seen enough to believe that he would do that, and that's what he was about, because his tune hasn't changed.
Rogers, an ordained minister, prayed with Usher's mother over the phone and eventually flew from Pittsburgh to Baltimore to see Beth. He greeted the unconscious child with her favorite puppets. As she writes in her essay, "For the following hour, I was the star in his neighborhood." As Beth told the New York Post in 2018,
"I felt like I was touched by an angel when I met Mr. Rogers."
Their friendship would last a lifetime. In 1968, Mr. Rogers asked Officer Clemmons to play the neighborhood policeman on his show. This was a significant casting choice for a number of reasons. As Clemmons told the New York Post, "I came from the ghetto. I always thought of the police as being the most dangerous person in the neighborhood." In addition to facing the racial tensions of the time, Clemmons had to grapple with being gay. In the 2018 documentary, "Won't You Be My Neighbor?" he says,
"There were black kids watching the show. They needed a black figure who would not let them down."
He goes on to explain, "If I came out as gay and there was some kind of scandal, that would not serve the race." Rogers learned Clemmons was gay a few months after he was hired. Concerned about backlash from conservative viewers, he asked Clemmons to remain closeted. Clemmons complied and even married a woman, but these sacrifices didn't spoil his view of Rogers. As he explains,
"From then on, he became my surrogate father."
When Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, Rogers personally picked up a distraught Clemmons from his home out of concern for his safety. Clemmons tells Variety, "I never had someone express that kind of deep sense of protection for me." Rogers' views evolved over time, and he later sought out openly gay guests on his show. In a 2018 Today interview, Fred Rogers' widow, Joanne, opened up...
that whole, again, the context of the whole signing Francois Clemmons as a policeman of all things on the show during that time where segregation was still a thing. Obviously, I saw a clip of this hotel owner pouring cleaning chemicals, which, you know, read between the lines, you'll know what that is. I'm trying to be careful on YouTube.
Around the country, they didn't want black people to come and swim in their swimming pools. And Fred said, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Today, trouble under a noon sun. Negroes and white rabbis marched to a segregated hotel with these results. Manager James Brock told them to get off his private property, tossed cleaning chemicals inside the pool in an effort to get the Negroes to leave.
I still can't get over that pool scene and just how monumental that, like, just him hiring Clemmons was, and how significant that was, and just the impact that would have had during the time, man.
In a 2018 Today interview, Fred Rogers' widow, Joanne, opened up about how her husband of nearly 51 years proposed. He wrote me a letter. My last year at Florida State, he wrote me a letter proposing marriage. In the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, Fred Rogers' son Jim revealed how his dad vented his anger. Rather than shout or dole out spankings, he spoke in the voice of his often grumpy puppet creation, Lady Elaine Fairchild. And in regards to Daniel's striped tiger, Joanne revealed,
But I think Daniel was the real Fred.
in a 2015 article headlined Saint Fred, Atlanta.
That was probably one of the more shocking things that I found out in the documentary as well. It also made me curious as to think for him to use the puppets as a way of expressing his emotions as well. And from what it seems like, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't something that only just helped the kids watching, but it was also something that seemingly helps him quite a bit as well, which is very interesting, man.
In a 2015 article headlined Saint Fred, Atlantic contributor Jonathan Merritt wrote that if Protestants had saints, Mr. Rogers might already have been canonized. Speaking to Today in 2018, Won't You Be My Neighbor director Morgan Neville revealed that Fred wouldn't have wanted such high praise, at least according to his widow Joanne. As Neville puts it, Joanne told me at the beginning, don't make Fred into a saint, because Fred's struggle was often against people who didn't take him seriously and understand the profundity of his message. Treating him like a saint keeps him two-dimensional. His mission was to tell us that we all struggle, and he doesn't exist on another plane.
Right.
Mere months
he
before
struggles
Fred
as well,
Rogers
man.
succumbed to stomach cancer, he recorded a short
And you
message.
see the struggle in the documentary as well, man. You see it. Like, that was something. How Mr. Rogers dealt with struggle in that documentary was something that was just so interesting to see as well.
His mission was to tell us that we all struggle, and he doesn't exist on another plane. Mere months before Fred Rogers succumbed to stomach cancer, he recorded a short message for the adults who enjoyed his show when they were kids. It was the last recording he ever made at WQED Studios, where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed.
I know how tough it is some days to look with hope and confidence on the months and years ahead.
He goes on to say,
during the
I would
9/11.
like to tell you what I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are. He then thanks his grown-up fans for helping the children in their lives feel safe. The clip ends with Rogers doing what he always did best, making other people feel valued.
It's such a good feeling to know that we're lifelong friends.
In the documentary Won't You Be
Real
My
talk.
Neighbor, Joanne reveals what Fred asked her on his deathbed.
He said, do you think I'm a sheep?
Fred was likely
Yeah, that
referring to this
was
passage
mad.
in the Bible. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, he will separate
from
the
the
people
goats.
one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left.
There was a little silence, and then I said, Fred,
What?
if ever there was a sheep, you're one.
100%.
Check out
man.
one of our new...
Yeah, that was all my days. Again, I keep going on about this documentary. Look, you guys have to see it, whether it's, you see it on my Patreon, whether you just check it out on your own time or you already seen it. Look, when he said that, I was like, come on, Fred. He had those thoughts of whether he's a sheep or not, and you can see the impact that he had. But I think that just goes to show, isn't it? Nobody is, like the commentator was saying, nobody is exempt from struggle. Or what do they say? It's like the person who gives advice sometimes is the one that needs it the most. So just to show, nobody is exempt from struggling, right? Even no matter what scenario people are in, whether some people want to say someone struggles worse than other, whether it is, or whether people want to be, policing or, getting critical about what could be considered a struggle. At the end of the day, people still feel things, whether it's justified or not. And I think if those feelings aren't cultivated in the right manner and acknowledged, then they can become really big problems later on down the road. And the most beautiful thing of all is that kind of messaging is not something that is exclusive to children. I even think, from what I've seen as well, it becomes even more important as you get older as well, to make sure that you have a lot of these emotions in check. Because I think that's something that can really influence the trajectory of a lot of people's lives. Emotional intelligence, man, it's a big thing. I'll be very curious to see what you guys thought about this video. Was there any parts in this video that you felt like weren't mentioned? And how does this one impact you? But of course, I made this point, comment on a yellow heart so I know who my real ones are, who made it to the end of the video. You guys are real ones. And of course, I have to let you guys know after every single video, because you guys, I want you guys, similar like to Mr. Rogers, know how much you guys are appreciated and how much you guys, how special you guys are. And that's actually not ironic. I actually be doing that. A lot of you guys who been watching me will know that, of course. If you want to see some more of my Mr. Rogers reactions, or you want to just see where this rabbit hole all began, then I would definitely recommend checking out my Mr. Rogers playlist, where you can see all of my Mr. Rogers reactions from start to finish in chronological order, and you can watch me uncover just how much of a national icon this man was. As well as, don't forget to like the video before you head on out. Of course, as I'm your boy JayFlex, this has been me checking out what's come out about Mr. Rogers since he died. And for those of you guys that made this point, you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.